It being 7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting of the Clinton Board of Selectmen to order. First order of business is public comment. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, next is review of minutes. We have minutes for October 21st, 2020, regular and executive session. Actually, two executive sessions, one for landfill lease and one for fire union negotiations. Excuse me. What's the pleasure of the board? Three. That's okay. We have 1 and 2 executive sessions. Is there a second? Second. Motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We'd like to welcome back the Parks and Recreation Commission. I don't know if you guys want to, or at least one of you step up to the mic. We're going to have to do a roll call, so.
John Barry, 15 Deck Drive, Clinton, Chairman of the Parks and Rec Board.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I guess we'll just continue what we did before. Are there any motions for filling the vacancy on the Parks and Rec Commission? Are there any other motions? Any other nominations? Excuse me. Hearing none, we'll do a roll call. Glasses. Ms. Agniti. Yes or no? Yes. Mr. Perry. We're going to do a roll call for. There's one nominee, so we'll just.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Barrier. Is Mr. Garofoli here? No? Okay. Mr. DeVoe?
Yes.
Mr. Conley? Yes. Mr. Busno?
You have to abstain, it's a relative.
Abstain. We still have the numbers, right? Mr. Kovas?
Yes.
And I'm also going to abstain, but I believe it's unanimous, so we're going to appoint Patty Kerrigan to the Parks and Rec vacancy. Thank you for coming out. Appreciate your flexibility.
1 second, Chair.
Please.
So effective today, I had submitted my resignation from the Fullerfield Commission in order to open the vacancy up for the appointment of Mrs. Kerrigan. If we'd like to do both.
Yes. Motion?
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All's in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is the Board of Health for a COVID-19 update. Welcome.
Good evening, gentlemen. Just going to give you a quick update. We haven't seen you guys in a couple weeks, so Tom will give you a quick rundown of what the numbers are right now, and we'll go from there.
Okay, as of 1 o'clock this after, we've had 378 confirmed cases in town. Right now we're monitoring 29, and we got 349 that are off. Notify them every day.
My apologies.
So where that puts us, last week we had 21 cases for the week. This week right now we're at 11. So that's going to put us 3 weeks in the red. So we're going to have to revert back from phase 3, step 2. We're going to go back to step 1. So what that does, it's going to limit occupancy, restaurants, gyms, stuff of that nature. Tables of 10 have to go down to 6. So we're going to go out and pass out that regulation on Monday. That's when it'll go into effect. However, the governor came out with some new guidelines that we just want to touch on with you quickly, making it mandatory that you wear a face mask in public was one. He also changed the occupancy for private parties, indoor parties from 10, outdoor gatherings to 25. And then the last one, he basically shutting everything down at 10 o'clock. So all local businesses have to be closed by 9:30, especially those that serve liquor. Our interpretation of this is if you serve food, like if you're a supermarket, a convenience store, you can remain open. But all you can serve are food and drinks, no alcohol. Gas stations and pharmacies are the only exceptions. So I think McDonald's would have to be drive-through only after 9:30. And we'll get a second opinion on this, but that's how we see it. I don't know if you had any questions of us on these new regulations.
Do you need support from us as far as enforcement?
Well, as far as the liquor part of it, it really falls into the selectmen, I think. So if you could help us out with just monitoring that part, that these places are closed, that would be a big relief. I mean, we'll go out the first night to take a look and see if everyone's adhering to the new guidelines. We'll talk to them all tomorrow. Hopefully they understand. Yeah, it does go into effect Friday morning. But the real thing here, I mean, to get out of the red, we have to have less than 16 cases in a 2-week period. Right now, we're at 32. So that's going to put us in the red next week. So in order for us to get down, we have to start paying attention to these guidelines. We follow the governor's regulations from the start, pretty much the letter of the law, and it got us almost down to 0. So it's my recommendation, and we're going to try and follow him again and see if he can get us back down there. So he's taking it serious. I think we should be taking it serious, and hopefully some of the local businesses and most of the people in town are too.
Mr. Chair, so is the ask, are you asking us to amend or update the hours of operation for liquor licenses?
I don't know if you'd have to amend them. I think you would maybe just make a motion to follow them and adopt the new guidelines by the governor. And
Okay.
I mean, I think it has to be that way anyway, but as a show of support, if you said that, 9 o'clock, 9:30, that's it, all businesses have to be closed.
Okay.
We'd appreciate the help.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that the Select Board adopt the new measures laid out by Governor Baker in the document handed to us by the Board of Health under the section mandatory nighttime closing period for certain businesses and activities.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Under discussion, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to stipulate that a separate notice from the one the Board of Health is giving all these establishments come from the Board of Selectmen as the licensing authority to the license holders. Tell them that it's a requirement of the Board of Selectmen relative to their license.
Need an amendment for that, or? Okay.
So amended.
Any further discussion or questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you. Anything else?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, we'll come back in 2 weeks. Hopefully the numbers start working in our favor, and hopefully we get back into the yellow and eventually the green, and hopefully start opening some of these places back up.
Yeah, it's going to be, as you guys have covered it, as the governor's mentioned, it's going to be a different kind of winter, and these small gatherings are proving to be one of the big spreaders. So, I mean, I host Thanksgiving every year, and we're already going to be doing it very differently. So, I just want people to manage expectations that none of us is happy about this, but we have to do things different. Let's follow up, get through this. Ed, do you want to?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just so earlier in the week, we had circulated a letter that was written by myself, you, and Mr. Lipka. We did also circulate that same letter to the school committee, and at their meeting on Monday night, they voted to endorse the contents of that letter. Parks and Rec has also expressed that they endorse the contents of that letter. Obviously, the Board of Health is on board. I'd just like to, I'm pretty sure, I think everyone on the select board has read that letter. And I'd just like to make a motion of support for the content of that letter, so that when it does go into the item on Friday, it will list the Board of Selectmen as one of the boards, along with the school committee and the Board of Health and the Parks and Rec, as a local board that endorses that letter.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Good work. I'm told the facilities director had a family issue and may or may not be making it, so let's table that if possible. We're on to old and new business. Ed, downtown parking?
Yeah, this is more of just an opening discussion, and we can talk about this with Phil and with Mike, I don't know, maybe with Chris, but I would like, with the updates going on downtown, I would like us to start thinking about a comprehensive parking plan. I know that there have been studies done in the past. There are some opinions on what we should do, but I'd like to kind of get it all together and start talking about ways that we can optimize the parking situation. We have available lots, things that we can do about enforcement on making sure that the parking spots are available for customers primarily. So the intent of putting this on the agenda isn't really to have an in-depth discussion about it tonight, but just to really put it on the radar. And if anyone else has any opinions on that matter, certainly open to discuss it. But I just wanted to get that on the radar, and hopefully we can start talking with Mike and Phil and possibly give a timeline for, I don't, whether that's a month or 2 months, but like agree on a date that we can work with Phil on, when, or whoever else we think could contribute to that proposal, to do a presentation to the Board of Selectmen sometime in, maybe December or something like that, or January. That's
Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's something that's been on my mind too. We've discussed it on the Downtown Steering Committee, and I know that we did an inventory a couple of years ago, and that there's a bit of a standing committee. Michael, you remind me, it's the police chief, the DPW superintendent, and the economic development director. It's just with the changing landscape downtown, part of it our control, part of it other people's control. I think it'd be a great idea to just get a full inventory, not just of municipal lots, but private lots, and how they're used, both whether it's commercially, residentially, during the day, during the night, and how that all jives together. If we're making, if we're claiming a transformative project downtown, I think that parking has to be part of that, and it would be a great idea to look at, as you mentioned, I know lighting, a lot of the things are going to dovetail into the downtown project, but I think if we're cracking the seal on it, we might as well get it all done at the same time, instead of trying to, see stuff later and Band-Aid it. So we can, how would you like to proceed? I guess the reason I want to talk about it was to make sure that we knew what we were looking for before we started asking someone to do it. Like, I just want to make sure who we're going to have to tag on this.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to express interest in being a part of that project,
Great.
if possible.
Okay. I mean, I know this is something that is near and dear to you. So, I mean, I would imagine the first step would be somebody just reaching out to Phil and Mike, I guess, to start, and to just start to discuss what we think would be the scope of the study. I mean, I think we all have an idea, but get something in writing, and it can at least get started, and then at the next selectmen's meeting, we can present what we think is going to be the scope of this of this parking study. I mean, it's essentially, it's enforcement. We have parking lot. We have the Walnut Street lot. We have the 2 St. John's parking lots, and then we have the lot behind the Oxford Courts. Part of the study would be to lay out, 'cause behind Oxford Courts it's a little confusing as to what's public, what's school, what's privately owned by Oxford Courts. There's still some things that, from what I understand from talking to Phil, there's potential to gain more public parking. So I think that would be part of it. And then another part of it would be, what can we do to, for lack of a better term, beautify the walking lanes from some of the parking areas to downtown or to the High Street area, because there are, especially on the St. John's lots, I think there's room for improvement. We talked, actually, Chris McGowan talked about, and we could follow up with them on this, on leaving the infrastructure and the sidewalk so that if we did want to add lighting down some of those alleys, that would be possible. I know we discussed that with them it was a while ago though, so we might want to follow up with them to make sure that that's still in the mix. And I think the last part of it was just having a conversation with St. John's Parish, because up until, as far as I know, up until now, just by their good graces, they allow the residents to use the St. John's parking lots for, park there and then walk up the High Street. So we might want to talk to them about trying to formalize some sort of an agreement. That's kind of the scope. That's what I think the scope of the proposal should be.
If it pleases the board, I'll talk to Phil and we'll get formalized what is already part of the downtown project and what holes we think might still exist afterward, and then he and I can report back at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think the low-hanging fruit is probably enforcement, so I think that's where we should start with Phil on that.
It's been hanging low for a long time.
I know,
And we haven't
but
really
it's-
grabbed it.
right.
So,
Yep.
Understood. If that's okay with everybody else. All right.
Chairman, if I may
Yes.
suggest, maybe I'm a victim of old age, but didn't we do some kind of
Yes.
lighting study and a separate parking study?
I
At
know.
least the preliminary ones parking one was a little more significant, and it itemized parking inventory all around downtown.
Before my time, I was trying to put my hands on it before I came tonight. I think I nicked one. So,
I'd ask Mike or Phil to generate both of those, because there was a lighting one as well.
the lighting I know is part of the downtown project. It's the idea is to address those alleyways and ensure that, and it connects back to the wayfinding thing which we kicked off a couple of years ago that is still scalable. Just to let people know, it doesn't do us any good to have lots if people don't know where they are or feel safe going to them. So I think, at least my understanding of the downtown plan is to address those things, but I think we should make sure we know that, and how far we're going, and if we could go farther, or if we need to. So, yeah, I'll definitely, I just think, I think Ed's point, and I agree, is that we've been poking around at this, and now that we're digging in here, why don't we just make sure it works?
Yep.
So, I will report back at our next meeting. Excuse me.
But, Mr. Chair, will certainly, as Mr. Conley suggested, get all the previous work that was done, any recommendations and that have taken place already, and just kind of put a report together so everyone has the current information. So.
Thank you. Next up, proposed special town meeting.
Right.
Do we have any?
So, Mr. Chair, I just went back just to touch base with the department heads to see if there were any other issues. There weren't any outstanding other than what we previously had proposed. One would be just trying to amend the school budget to take advantage of the state aid. The fire department, they initially had hoped to get either lease or borrow authorization for a ambulance, because the lead time would be well into next year, probably 9 to 12 months to get it. So they were hoping to get authorization to move forward with that instead of waiting till June. And then the only other issue would be if the board wanted to put on adoption of that local acceptance statute about the personal property permits or taxes and permits, unpaid taxes for issuing of licensing and permits. So other than those three issues, nobody had any real urgent business. We are in finalizing negotiations with the fire union. We're looking to get started soon with the police, but we don't have a formal document ready yet for the selectmen to approve, so with this tight time frame, it's kind of hard to wait, because if we are going to move forward to take advantage of that action for the tax rate, we would have to probably get something to the newspaper next week to give 2 weeks' notice, and try to have a meeting on Monday, November 30th, because then that Wednesday, the selectmen meeting would be the tax classification hearing, and then the tax rate has to get approved, and bills have to be printed and get out to all the property owners in the mail by December 31st. So it's kind of a very compressed, tight schedule. So if the board was willing to go forward with 1 or 2 or 3 of those articles, we could ask the Finance Committee to meet next week and review them, and then send it to the newspaper for advertising, so.
Do we have details on the ambulance?
That's kind of where we're at, I'm sorry.
Do we have details on the ambulance? Like, would we be able to, when does the warrant have to be, we have to have it in the paper next week?
Yeah,
Can we turn this around, you think we can turn this around quick enough?
right,
Okay,
yeah.
Mr.
okay.
Chairman,
Yes.
if I may, I make a motion that we schedule annual town meeting for the date town administrators that work and include 3 articles just discussed. And I don't know, do we need to set the quorum at this point, or does that have to be in the notice?
Which,
Or a quorum for a special town meeting?
We're still under COVID guidelines.
I think we're still under the COVID rules, so I think it would be the amended quorum that we had from the annual, I believe, so.
20?
It was 20 was the annual, but, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a suggestion that the motion be that the quorum be set for whatever is allowed by COVID regulations? Because I think it was a percentage of the required quorum, and a special town meeting, I think, has a lower standard quorum than annual. So I'd suggest that the motion, I'm saying my motion is that the quorum be set at the minimum allowed by the COVID regulations.
I'll second.
Second? Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0.
Thank you.
Landfill solar easement. Superintendent of Public Works is recommending approval of an agreement to lease an easement on property in South Meadow landfill for solar array on private property adjacent to town land. Do I have any details of this?
It was just the last meeting, the board had met to review the parameters of that, and I think we came to an agreement, but it needed a open meeting vote to endorse what the board discussed at the last meeting.
It's a pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I move we enter into the landfill solar lease agreement as presented at our previous meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. 2020 Board and Commission appointments. We've got some interest in Conservation Commission, Personnel Board, and
Mr. Chairman, I think I'd like to recommend that we just go item by item
Sure.
in the schedule of positions, because there are other existing
Expired.
positions that have expired.
Yep.
So I'm hoping somebody might will follow along and correct me if I misstate the term or anything else. So if I may, I nominate Patty Kerrigan to fill Matt Kovas's position on the Fuller Field Commission. Term expires 2021.
I'll second.
motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Amanda Agnetti to the Fuller Field Commission to a term expiring 2023, which we don't expect to actually last that long, but that's the 3-year term. Is that correct? Should it be 2023 or? Yeah, that's my motion.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Mike Garofoli to the Fuller Field Commission for the term expiring 2023.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Robin Davidson to a 3-year term on the Historical Commission, expiring 2023.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Ryan Ordung to the vacant term on the Conservation Commission that expires 2021.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0.
Did we have another no. There's an existing person holding a position on the Conservation Commission, Donald Brown, and his term expired 2020. I nominate him to a term expiring 2023.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
This is the Zoning Board of Appeals. I nominate Christopher O'Donnell, who currently holds the seat, to a 5-year term on the Zoning Board of Appeals, term expiring 2025.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Chairman, there is no applicant for the alternate position that expired 2020 for the Zoning Board of Appeals, so that remains open. To the Personnel Board, Mr. Chairman, for the employee member, I nominate Lisa Prophet to the term expires
I'll second that.
2022.
2022. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Also, I nominate to the Personnel Board Robert Latini. His term expired 2020, so it would be a term expiring 2023.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Christine Diamond to a term expiring 2023. She currently holds that position.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we have the Council on Aging with 3-year terms, but we don't have any dates of expiration on these terms, on these positions.
Okay.
So we'll, at our next meeting, we'll have to fill that
Get
all in.
those terms, yep.
Commission on Disability, I'm going to try to do this a little bit quicker. No, all right. I nominate Mary Lutz, who currently holds a position, to a term expiring in 2023 to the Commission on Disability.
I'll second that.
Hold on one second. I've got her expiring 2022.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You got a
Mr.
vacancy
Chairman.
in
Yep, thank you.
Thursday.
I needed a babysitter. I'm trying
That's
to
all
move this
right.
along. I withdraw that motion.
We've got 3 in 2022
Yeah,
one
one
vacancy.
vacancy. Ellie Brewster, term expires to a term until 2023.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Joanne Warren to a term expiring 2023.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
And just to clarify, that leaves 2 vacant positions on the Commission on Disability. The Cultural Council, I'd like to nominate, these are all people who currently hold the position, Leslie Wilson, to a 3-year term, 2023.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Janet Carey on the Cultural Council, to a term expiring 2023.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Elizabeth Newman to a term on the Cultural Commission expiring in 2023.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, there's currently a vacancy on the Montechusett Opportunity Council Board of Directors, a 1-year term. So,
Great.
Cable Television Committee, do we need to?
No,
reappoint those? No? Okay.
I think we're good.
That's it, Mr. Chairman. For
All right.
Thursday.
We also met with members of the Finance Committee and the town moderator to approve, or to appoint some vacancies on that board. Did we get any word back on the potential conflict for the retirement board?
Yeah, I think we just announced all of them, which is,
Is he, so he can be on both?
we're still checking into that, but I think for now, it's going to say it's okay until we hear differently.
Okay. So that's the moderator's appointment. He wanted us to let everyone know that Michael Chikonsky, Paul Cherubini, and Aaron Powell are 3 new members of the Finance Committee. And there's terms we gotta sort out that I have on my email that I don't hear, but he's made those appointments. Do we need to let these people know about swearings in or anything like that? Do we send letters to them? And the people-
Yeah, that's something they can do.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
going back to the Personnel Board, is there, who filled the vacancy? I don't know if, is there an empty,
No applicants.
so I see
Lisa Prophet. Or she
Mr.
the employee
Bailey.
member?
She was the appointment. For the person, she was appointed to the
Employee member.
the employee representative.
Oh, okay, so, okay, now I got you. Gotcha.
All right, so we still have a vacancy there.
Right.
Mr. Bailey could not fill that position as part of the personnel?
I think
We can double check with the town solicitor, but I think there was a prohibition on employees serving.
Gotcha.
But then the bylaw was changed to allow 1 employee member. So that's where. Yeah, so I don't think, even if somebody wants to serve in their private capacity, I think by virtue of being an employee, they may not be able to do it.
Understood.
To do it both.
We're on to goals and
But
objectives.
we'll double check that, though.
I have one thing for old and new business. In light of the recent developments, the Savage Field lighting project, the last I knew, it had not been put out to bid.
I don't know for sure, yeah, but I can check on that. Yeah, I thought we would have heard that tonight, yeah.
Is there any possibility of moving that perhaps to see if the building commission could assist with getting that out to bid?
I'd be in favor of that, if that's a possibility.
I think the smart thing to do would be to direct the town administrator to proceed with whatever course of action he thinks is necessary to get that out to bid, whether it be turn it over to the capital building committee, see if work quickly with the facility director to get it done, or so he knows how to put stuff out
Yeah,
to bid.
yeah, I
Or
think-
utilize Mr. Duffy.
Yeah, my understanding is that it would be ready, if it's ready to go out, it's just putting a notice in the central register and getting that timeline started so we can accept bids, so.
So the spec is all written?
Yeah, I'll check and see, but, you know, the hope was that the consultant was gonna put this together, so if not, like you suggested, we'll have them do that ASAP. If it is, then it's just a matter of getting it advertised, but I'll find out. You know, we're gonna get an update tonight, and I was gonna be informed tonight as well, so I'll find out.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would like to ask the town administrator not just to find out, but make it happen.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, because this,
Whatever steps, I just
Whatever
didn't know, I
step.
just don't know what step in the process it was, so whatever it is, we'll move it forward, yep. Yep, absolutely.
That work for you guys?
Absolutely.
yeah, because I think we are a little bit behind on the proposed schedule of that, the schedule laid out by the building committee. So I think getting this out to bid, something that we need to keep an eye on. So I think it's something we should keep putting on the agenda for an update until such time as it is actually out for bid. Hopefully, it'll be out for bid before our next meeting.
Yeah, I share your frustration. We spoke, Matt and I met with the facilities director a couple weeks ago, and we were assured that it was next on his list, and, you know, we, while understanding it probably wasn't going to get done this fall, it was, you know, we certainly need it up before baseball starts, because that was, we voted to make it priority. So it's not going to get done if there's no bid. So, yeah.
So that's why I'm hoping that it's further along than we think, and then it's just a matter of bringing it to the next step. And then once bids come in, they go back to the building committee for award anyways, and then it's just a matter of them overseeing the project. So, yep,
Okay.
absolutely. So whatever step it is, we need to get it to the next one. Yep.
Great. We'll keep that on the agenda and update you guys in a couple weeks. Ed, do you want to talk about goals and objectives?
Yeah, so Mike was nice enough to put a copy of the example of the goals and objectives spreadsheet that I created. It's just a template. So I don't want to take up too much time, but I just want everyone to just talk to it briefly, and because this is something I think I'd like town administrator's office to ultimately maintain, not Mike himself specifically, but maybe possibly Joyce or somebody in the office that could maintain the schedule, just so we don't lose sight of different projects that we have been working on, so that we will keep getting updates. So essentially, it just breaks it into long-term, medium-term, and short-term. And then next to each column, there would be a date that we would agree to when it would be brought up and automatically put on the agenda for discussion and for an update. So the only thing of note is just the format of this is that sometimes a long-term project, which is all the way to the left, might potentially have short-term and medium-term action items within it. So on this example, downtown reconstruction, and, you know, this is just totally theoretical examples. Under medium term, I had updates on the project manager or updates on the schedule as like a medium term update. So those have their own dates associated with it. There may be instances where, like for example, in line item 3, the West Ledge lights. So I'm categorizing that as medium term. There is no long-term project in front of it. That's just what it is, and that has a date and a contact person, a responsible person associated with it. And in the last example, line item 4 would be an example of just a standalone short-term update that we would want. And so it's pretty simple. It might look like a lot at first, but the goal of it is that if we do have long-term projects that have short-term elements of them, that it will be broken down that way, where the main column will go across, and then you'll have the different shorter-term updates listed across. But you can also have long-term projects in there that are broken up into shorter ones, or you can just have short-term projects in there that we're going to want to require more frequent updates. So the purpose of me just presenting this to you guys and going over it is just to make sure you guys are comfortable with the format, or if you did have any suggestions or concerns with the way the format is, I could take that feedback and I could update it. But to start, I will populate this and I will hand it over to Mike, but the goal would be for Mike's office to maintain this for us, so that he'll have a spreadsheet of the numerous things that we're trying to keep an eye on, and it will indicate when they should go on the agenda for an update to the Board of Selectmen.
So where to next?
Where to next is I'll populate this with the goals and objectives and hand it over. If we're comfortable with the format, I'll populate this with the goals and objectives. I will hand it over to Mike, and I will talk with Mike in his office to make sure that they're comfortable with it, and they think that they can handle updating it. And again, they might have some additional updates that might make this more comfortable for them. But for this right now, I just wanted the board to be aware of it and to be okay with it. And then the next step is for me to work with Mike in his office on maintaining it once it gets filled out.
All right. Moving on. Committee reports. Matt?
All right. So I handed out did I give you a copy? Yes. Mr. Ward?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
This was the town warrant audit, so going through the last 5 fiscal years of warrants related to purchases or projects. Anything that was closed or completed was not included on the spreadsheet that I provided. First, I'd like to thank the town accountant's office. Mrs. Magliozzi and Mrs. McGowan did a great job with turning around information. Were super helpful and provided a lot of great feedback and ideas on how to maybe improve the process itself. So just within the audit details, it was just an operational audit focused on FY15 through FY19. 2 funding sources that were focused on were free cash and borrowing, and then there were 3 warrant statuses which were closed, meaning it had been completed, balance, which was expenditures that had been partially completed but funds still remained, and then there were open, which basically there wasn't any movement as far as expenditures within that period. The data is between 30 to 45 days old. All right, I got the update in September. So some of the numbers, it's possible that they may have moved. So with the findings, so in our open articles, there's currently $2,135,000 that were approved. There's approximately $1 million that was in process. $1 million was attributed also to the landfill closure, which I understand is a longer project, and that left $95,000 that was approved funding but remained unspent. Approximately $395,000 had been approved between fiscal years 2015 to 2017, meaning that it's been carried, was carried for approximately 5 to 7 years. The next were articles with a balance. So there's approximately $4.1 million that was approved at town meeting. There was approximately $2 million that had been approved expenditures, which was 49% of that. And there is $2.1 million that are within funds that remain unspent. So within that number, I had contacted each department head, and there's approximately $219,000 that is unspent but deemed completed by the department head. So in the end, it was looking at what we can do to either repurpose these funds, or what to do other than kind of have them hang in limbo. So with the free cash, once it's deemed complete by the department head, they can provide in writing that the project or the purchase is complete, and those funds could eventually be returned to the general funds account. Remaining funds could be repurposed by the way of a warrant and approval at town meeting. For a borrowing article, if the department head deems the project or purchase to be complete, the remaining funds could be repurposed by the way of a warrant and approval at town meeting. And another way is the remaining funds could be applied to the borrowing debt or a project of similar lifespan. So just a few recommendations. As I said to Mr. Ward, I'm not sure if there are existing, an existing procedure in place, but having including this in the annual town warrant. So if a project has been complete, then once it's deemed, get it on the warrant, and that way at town meeting we can repurpose or return the funds to the general fund for another use. looking at the addition of a target date of completion, so if there's a purchase that is going to be made, what's the target date for executing that? There were a couple of purchases that had carried over into 2 fiscal years approximately, so it's just looking to see, was that a necessity, or, you know, what kind of held it up? Did the department's needs change in some way, but trying to identify what's transpiring so that way we can make sure that the money that's being asked from the taxpayers, that it's being allocated to the project in a acceptable time frame. And then finally, you know, establishing, formalizing, and adopting a process, so between working with the town administrator, the town accountant, and the department heads to formalize the process and adopt it, so that way it just becomes part of it, right? And then lastly, that was it. So that's the extent of it.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot here, and I look forward to getting into it. How do you want to proceed? Do you want, what do you think?
I think, you know, if you want, if maybe, you know, if you look at the 2 spreadsheets that were included, maybe going through, you can see I included the updates from the department heads, so you can have an idea of where it is in the process. But maybe at the next meeting, you know, after having a chance to maybe dive into it, I can speak with Mr. Ward about any existing policy or procedure. It could just be something that's a simple reminder. I know there's been some transition between various department heads, so some of that balance, you know, some of the balance that have been carried over, it had been there before the person had got here. So just ensuring that the projects have been completed, and, you know, I think that's where working with Mr. Ward is to kind of make something very uniform, very simple, and effective.
And what's the difference between the two? One is completely open and the other is just unused funds?
Exactly. So if it says open, that means that the money had been, the funds have been approved, but nothing has been, no expenditures have taken place out of the account, right, out of the bank account. So that the funds still are there. But as you see, for purchases, the purchases have taken place, but, you know, until the delivery of the purchase is executed, that, you know, so that's one part of it. And then the other aspect on the borrowing article, again, would be any unused funds. So if the project's been completed, then you'll see that, you know, if it's a borrowing article, we can either apply those unused funds to the debt or repurpose them through town meeting. And then you have, you know, the fiscal year. So as I mentioned, when you think about FY16 being approved in June of 2015,
Yep.
right, it's been carrying over for some time. So
Nice to see people trying to get rid of the bump outs back in 2015. Trying to sneak down before I got on. I'm glad I'm here now. I love those guys. All right, thank you again for doing this. Obviously, you put a lot of time into this, and I'm looking forward to this, to checking out, and I've got you on the agenda next time. So.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Selectman Clovis, just in the spirit of that form that I was just discussing, is this something that you would want to have updated for like every meeting for the short term? Have an update on what some of these line items, the condition of them are they being spent, or you think that would be more of a medium term? You know, you think this would be a short term or a medium term item?
I would say a medium term would be
Okay.
would be adequate, just so you know, that would still, you know, anything that had been discussed or decided, it still puts us in approximately January.
Yep.
So that way, but I would say medium term.
Okay, thank you.
Personnel Evaluation Subcommittee.
So we met last Friday before last, and we were able to finalize, well, not finalize, I guess finalize a draft So we sent that out. This draft is based off of an existing town administrator evaluation combined with items that are in our town administrator's contract. So it's a very simple form. I'd like this meeting just to be like a first reading for you guys, just to take a look at it. Let me know if you're comfortable with it. If there's any questions you have about it, just reach out to me. Anything missing, anything you don't think should be in there. The format is pretty straightforward at the top, just a exceeds, meets, needs improvement, unacceptable, and unable to rate. So we'll just be, when we do, I'm hoping at the next selectmen's meeting, we can say, we can approve this and then give a timeline between that meeting and the following meeting to fill the evaluation form out. And then we can discuss the results. And, I mean, mainly, all we would want to do is if there are a few line items that do fall underneath meets expectation, then we would just, in the subcommittee, we would meet to try to think of some ways, things that we can do to try to help the town administrator in his office to deal with some of those line items. Underneath each section, it just says goal and it's blank. That's because as far as I know, we haven't really given the town administrator any specific goals, especially ones related to each of these categories. So we're just the first time we do the evaluation, we'll just leave those blank. After we finish the evaluation, the next thing we can do is start to think of some goals and talk with Michael about what type of goals would make sense for him. And they would be annual, they'd be yearly goals that we would evaluate at the end of the year. But for now, since it's the first time we're doing it, we're just going to leave that blank and just have the placeholder there. So just take a look at it. If there's any updates that you'd like to see, just reach out to me, let me know, and I will make the updates and recirculate it. And the goal is at the next meeting we can approve this, and then give ourselves a couple weeks to fill it out, and then at the following meeting, I think we'll probably review the results at our subcommittee first, and then we'll give a general presentation for the Board of Selectmen, because I know I've gone through these on the school board. Usually you report the results of the evaluation, you usually don't go into like very minute detail you just kind of generally say how the evaluation went. But I think in the subcommittee meeting that we have with Michael, we'll get into the details of the evaluation.
Now, how did you guys handle it on the school board? I know that there's some, and I appreciate you putting this together, that there's some things here that seem like legitimate standards that I, not being here every day, wouldn't know how to answer. How did you guys deal with stuff like that? You know, like, monitors purchasing for all departments, or there's just some specific stuff that's like day-to-day stuff that
Sure.
I might not see.
Right.
That I don't think is disqualifies it for being on there, but I was just curious how you guys deal with the school committee.
I would say there's three ways to deal with that. One is if you feel strongly, or if enough other people feel about it, we can exclude it we can take it off if we don't think that it's value added. Two, you could take the approach that if you haven't heard anything bad about it, maybe he's meeting expectations, you haven't heard any complaints, haven't fielded any complaints, you have no evidence that he's not meeting that standard. I guess then the third option would be there is a column that's unable to rate. So I guess you could check the unable to rate column. So I would think any one of those three would be acceptable. But I think when people get back to me with, I'm sure other people are going to have some questions about some of these line items, so I'll address them one at a time.
Any questions? All right, I'll put that on the agenda too. Any other committee reports? Any other business at all?
Just a question. Michael, were we able to reach out to any of the candidates on the cable commission for the director, I can't talk.
Yeah.
The director of the cable
Yeah,
commission.
no, we're looking to working with them to schedule meetings. I'm giving them dates for next week as our meeting for time that I have to start getting together with them next week.
Okay.
So we're looking to populate our schedule for next week, and at least start bringing them in.
But out of the, I forget how many, 7 maybe, names, there was people that were still interested and engaged and wanting to come in to interview?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because it's been a while since we posted that, so I was just curious. Okay.
Mr. Chair, just a question. Is there any update on the human resources?
Yep, the human resource manager is all set to go. Start date is Monday, November 9th. We just completed renovations to the office, so I'm going to be meeting with her on, actually tomorrow, we're going to be meeting just to kind of do some onboarding discussions, and then she'll be here to start Monday morning.
And my hope was actually, if she's available, to have her in for the next meeting, say hello and see how things are going. She can be here, she can not be. I'm excited about that, and I'm glad we finally nailed that one down, so.
Mr. Chair, just one last thing for Mr. Ward. Is there anything preventing us, how quickly can we post the soon-to-be open position for the facilities director? Is there anything that's preventing us, like, could we post that tomorrow?
No, not at all. What I was looking to do was to at least have notice in the Telegram on Sunday, so then that will also be picked up online.
Okay.
We only need it 2 weeks in the item just as an official posting, but we can start, that can be done, if we have a 3 or 4 week opening, that can be done next week. But I wanted to at least get this weekend to get the ad starting and the timeline ticking so that we can get candidates in.
Okay.
So, yep, so there's nothing preventing to starting right away.
Okay, and one other thing I just wanted to throw it out to the board, totally open for discussion. I know I have reached out to a couple friends that are in the construction business, and there are some companies that can provide, I don't know if you want to call it consulting, but they're basically hired for a contract for a certain period of time, individuals that are knowledgeable about facilities management, that could be hired for 2 to 3 months. I can get more information on that, and I'll share it with you, Mike, I'll share it with the board, but I'm just bringing this up as something possibly to consider as a kind of a bridge between when Russ leaves and before we hire the new guy. It might not be the worst idea to start thinking about some sort of a temporary placeholder, just to make sure everything still keeps running, and we can absolutely still appoint people from within to elevate them temporarily to also try to keep the department going. But I'll send that information out shortly, but just something that, like the board and town administrator to consider moving forward.
Very well.
Can I just piggyback on that? 2 things. One, I would be interested in serving on the search committee if there is an available position. And secondly, I think looking at this position as it's been established, just kind of doing a reflection piece on what's gone very well, what are some areas that maybe we need to look at, put some focus on, and going into this, so that way whoever the next candidate is, it's a great fit.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think the second half of what Matt said is a great idea. I just want to clarify something. This appointment is the town administrator's appointment. Any screening committee is at his discretion and his appointment, not, would be appointing that
As always.
person. I just wanted to make sure everyone.
Thank you. Any other business? Questions, comments? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Nope, someone else has to make it.
Motion to adjourn.
That was a question. Now you
I'll second it.
Okay, John, I get you. Made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you and good night.